The end of the galaxy was not loud. It was efficient. On the bridge of the Galactic Concordance flagship Starweaver, Prelate Zlyn of the Sill observed the tactical hologram. It was a map of fading lights. Each one that winked out was a world, a civilization, a billion voices silenced. The enemy had no name. They were simply the swarm. Their ships looked like polished bone and obsidian. They moved together like a single mind. They did not answer hails. They did not accept surrenders. They arrived, they harvested, and they left only dust. The prelate watched the hollow report from the world of Myra's hope. It showed the sleek, horrible shapes descending through the atmosphere. The ground-based defenses fired bright lances of plasma. For a moment, a swarm ship shimmered, its surface glowing. Then the glow spread out, thinned, and vanished. The ship was untouched. It had adapted in seconds. A minute later, the first organic tendrils, like giant black roots, touched the planet's surface. The harvesting began. "Their shields learn," said Commander Vra, a feline-like Skith. Her fur was flat with fear. "Our weapons are useless after the first few shots." Their weapons, however. The hologram switched to show a swarm attack. A beam of dark red energy touched a Concordance cruiser. Where it hit, the ship's metal didn't melt. It simply crumbled like rotten wood before dissolving into atoms. It was not a laser. It was a weapon that unmade the bonds between matter. "The council has fallen," Prelate Zlyn said, his voice hollow. "The Tlo homeworlds are ash. The Sti-Hive networks are silent. We are the last coordinated fleet." He looked at the faces on his bridge. Different species united in desperation. "We make our stand here. The Curios abyss is at our backs. There is no retreat into that chaos. But perhaps its interference will confuse their sensors." It was a thin hope. Everyone knew it. The battle was short. The Concordance fleet, over 200 ships strong, formed a brilliant wall of light and metal. They fired a coordinated volley of missiles, plasma, and kinetic rounds. Space lit up with the fury of a dying civilization. The swarm fleet, half the size, moved forward. They did not dodge. The first wave of weapons struck. Shields flared on the bone-white ships, shimmering in rainbow colors. The second wave arrived. The shield colors stabilized. The third wave hit, and the shields barely flickered. They had adapted. Then the swarm returned fire. Threads of red, unmaking energy lanced out. Where they touched Concordance ships, great holes of nothingness appeared. A cruiser simply split in two, its insides exposed to vacuum. Escape pods flew out like sparks from a fire. The swarm ships ignored them, targeting the next warship. Commander Vra's console exploded in a shower of sparks. She was thrown back, a blackened hole in her chest. Prelate Zlyn did not flinch. He watched the hologram as ship after ship of his fleet turned into silent, expanding clouds of debris. "Send the general distress pulse," he ordered, his voice calm. "On all frequencies. Tell any who remain that we fought here." A young communications officer, his tentacles trembling, sent the pulse. It was a scream into the void. A final testament. A swarm battleship, larger than the others, turned its pointed nose toward the Starweaver. Zlyn saw a red glow gather at its tip. "It has been an honor," he said to the few bridge crew still alive. The red beam cut across space. It did not hit the Starweaver. At the last possible second, a brave Skith destroyer, engines flaming, slid into the path. It was unmade in an instant, but it bought a single second. In that second, the prelate's sensor officer, a small amphibious Glex, chirped in confusion. "Energy spike!" From within the abyss. The sensor display was chaotic. The Curios abyss was a mess of gravitational waves and radiation. Nothing could navigate it. But there, deep in the swirling sensor-scattering turbulence, was a flicker, a power signature. It was old. It was simple. It used a radio wave modulation pattern that was centuries out of date. Before the prelate could speak, the red beam found the Starweaver. The world dissolved into light and then into silence. The last thing Prelate Zlyn saw was not the swarm battleship. It was the sensor screen, that strange, archaic flicker from the heart of the abyss, pulsing once more before the screen went dark. The battle was over. The swarm had won. Their ships hung in the silence, surrounded by the floating graves of the Concordance fleet. They began to move, gathering to harvest the useful debris. They paid no attention to the strange, faint signal from the impassable abyss. It was background noise, a ghost echo, a curiosity not worth the attention of the victors of the galaxy. Deep in the chaotic darkness of the Curios abyss, the signal faded back to its usual, almost undetectable whisper. A whisper that had been listening. A whisper that had just heard the galaxy's final scream. And on the source of that whisper, deep in the cold metal halls of an ancient, forgotten ship, a single light on a long-dormant console switched from green to amber. The watch was over. The light on the console was a small thing. It was a simple amber diode behind a glass cover that read, "External Priority Alert." It had been green for 17 years, 3 months, and 11 days. The console was on the bridge of the CNV Munsu. The bridge was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of status screens and the cold light of the stars seen through the main viewport. Those stars were twisted here, blurred into strange streaks by the gravitational storms of the Curios abyss. Captain Li Minji sat in her command chair. She was a woman with a calm face and eyes that held a deep, permanent tiredness. She wore a simple black flight suit, its fabric worn soft at the elbows and knees. She watched the amber light. She did not move for a long time. Her executive officer, Commander Park Day-1, stood beside her. He was a solid, quiet man. He followed her gaze to the light. "The final distress pulse," he said. His voice was low, meant only for her. "The Concordance is gone." Minji finally moved. She reached out and pressed a button below the light. A distorted audio file played in the silent bridge. It was the voice of Prelate Zlyn, broken by static, filled with the hum of failing systems. "Tell any who remain that we fought here." Then there was only the hiss of empty space. The bridge crew, 10 men and women, all in similar worn uniforms, listened. No one spoke. The message was not a surprise. For years, the intelligence buoys had told a story of retreat, then collapse. This was just the last page. "Signal strength?" Minji asked. Sensor operator Kong Hyan, a man with very still hands, checked his readings. "Extreme origin distance." The signal was boosted by the dying Starweaver's main array, propagated on all bands. He paused. The engagement occurred just outside the abyss's turbulence boundary. "It is over." Minji nodded once. She stood up. The crew's eyes followed her. "Continue the watch," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried. It was the voice that had given orders in this metal world for 17 years. "Hyan, pull all data from the last 20 buoys. I want a full analysis of the enemy's attack patterns from the final battle." Day-1 with me. She walked off the bridge, Day-1 a step behind her. The corridor of the Munsu was narrow and clean, but every surface spoke of age. Pipes were exposed on the ceiling. Paint was chipped in corners. It was a ship from another time, kept alive by constant care. They walked to the observation deck, a small room with a thick window looking out into the swirling colors of the abyss. It was here they went for hard conversations. "The mandate is void," Day-1 said, staring out at the chaos. "The Galactic Concordance which ordered us to this silent watch no longer exists. Our mission is complete." "Our mission," Minji said softly, "was to be an early warning post, to watch the abyss for threats. We watched. We warned. They did not listen." She turned to him. "What is our duty now, Day-1? To the people who forgot us. To the galaxy that is being eaten." Day-1 was silent. He was a logical man. The Munsu is a Dauntless-class heavy cruiser. She is strong, but she is alone. Her technology is 3 generations old. The enemy adapts to weapons fire in seconds. A direct engagement is not duty. It is suicide. Minji did not argue. She knew he was right. "Chief Engineer Kim will have an opinion," she said. They found Kim Ji-hun in the main engineering bay. It was the loudest place on the ship, full of the deep hum of the gravity drive core and the smell of oil and ozone. Kim was halfway inside an open panel, his legs sticking out. He slid out when he heard them, his face smudged with grease. He was older, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You heard the funeral bells," Kim said, wiping his hands on a rag. It was not a question. "We did," Minji said. "What is the state of the ship?" Kim laughed, a short, rough sound. "The state? She is old. She is tired. Like me. But," he said, his expression turning serious, "she is also unknown. Those swarm ships, they are like a hive. They learn fast, right? They learn what they see. They have never seen us. Our systems are not networked like the Concordance ships. We use hardlines, analog backups. Our engine signature is different. Our shield harmonics are simple, old frequency patterns." He patted the bulkhead like it was a loyal animal. "To their fancy sensors in all this noise." He jerked his thumb towards the ceiling, meaning the abyss outside. "We might be a ghost. Or a rock." Minji looked at Day One. "An advantage. A small one," Day One conceded. "Bring the senior staff to the wardroom in 1 hour," Minji said. Her mind was turning, moving from the passive duty of watching to the active problem of survival, of choice. The wardroom was small, the table scratched from decades of use. Captain Minji sat at the head. Day One was to her right, Kim Ji-hun to her left. Weapons Officer Yoon Subin sat straight in her chair, her hands folded on the table. Sensor Operator Kang Hyen was there. Calm as ever. Minji did not waste words. She played the final distress pulse again. The static-filled voice filled the small room. When it ended, she spoke. "The Concordance has fallen. The enemy is now the sole power in this quadrant. We have 3 options. 1, we stay hidden in the abyss. We can survive here for years, perhaps, until our systems finally fail or they find us. 2, we attempt to slip into deep space to run to some forgotten corner. A slim chance. 3, we fight." Yoon Subin spoke first. Her voice was precise. "Fight with what objective, Captain? Military victory is impossible." "No," Minji agreed. "Not victory. Punishment. Disruption. We are a variable they have not calculated for. Chief Kim believes our obsolete nature is a cloak. We use it. We hit them where they do not expect it. We make them look over their shoulder." "To what end?" Day One asked. "To the end that someone somewhere might see that they can be hurt," Minji said, her voice firmer now. "That the light is not completely out. Our duty is no longer to a dead government. It is to life itself, to the principle of resistance." The room was quiet. Kim Yi-hun nodded slowly. "The ship will hold. She's waited a long time for a real fight." Subin ran calculations in her head. "Ambush tactics only. 1 strike, then immediate retreat. We cannot face a group." Kang Hyen spoke softly. "The abyss gives us hiding places. I can plot courses through the turbulence where their sensors will be blind." All eyes turned to Day One, the voice of caution. He looked at Minji, at the resolve that had kept them all sane for 17 years. He let out a slow breath. "Then we do not fight like the Concordance. We do not stand in a line. We are a ghost. We are a trap in the dark." A faint, hard light came into Captain Minji's eyes. The tiredness was still there, but under it was something else, something sharp that had been sleeping. "Then we are decided," she said. She stood up. "Commander Park, set condition 2 throughout the ship. Chief Kim, begin full combat diagnostics on all systems. We move in 24 hours. We will find a target. And we will remind the galaxy that humanity was not asked for its opinion about the end." She left the room. The orders were given. For the first time in 17 years, the quiet rhythm of the watch changed. It became the purposeful, steady beat of a warship preparing for battle. Deep in the abyss, the ghost began to sharpen its knife. The next 24 hours on the CNV Munsu were a symphony of quiet, urgent sounds. The deep hum of the gravity drive core changed its pitch. growing from a background whisper to a steady, powerful thrum that vibrated in the bones of the ship. The hiss of plasma torches echoed in engineering as Kim Ji-hun and his team bypassed failed safety protocols and welded reinforcement plates onto key junctions. Captain Min-ji moved through the ship. She walked the narrow corridors, past crew members who moved with a new focus. They nodded to her, their faces serious. There was no fear, only a kind of grim readiness. These were not young recruits. They were veterans of the long, silent watch. They had lived with the knowledge of their own isolation for so long that the idea of facing an enemy felt, strangely, like a release. In the weapons bay, Yoon Subin oversaw the loading of the primary kinetic cannons. These were not energy weapons. They were massive railguns that fired solid tungsten rods at a fraction of the speed of light. An ancient, brutal technology. They adapt to energy, Subin said to her loading team, her voice crisp. They learn shield frequencies. They cannot adapt to physics. A 1-ton rod moving that fast hits with the force of a small asteroid. It does not get learned. It simply is. The crew, covered in grime, hauled the massive slugs into the loading chambers with practiced efficiency. On the bridge, Kong Hyen and his sensor team worked. Their main screen usually showed the confusing swirl of the Kyrios abyss. Now it displayed a star map. The last known position of the swarm fleet was marked with a cold, red icon. Data from the final battle scrolled on side screens. They are predictable in their unpredictability, Hyen said softly to Min-ji and Dae-won who stood behind him. See the pattern? After a major engagement, they disperse for harvesting. Single ships or pairs move to nearby systems with planetary bodies. They follow an efficiency algorithm. They take the closest, most resource-rich target. He zoomed the map in. A system blinked, 3 light-years from the edge of the abyss. This is the Loriner system. It has 2 gas giants and an asteroid belt. High mineral density. A prime harvesting site for raw materials. Sensor logs from the last buoy show a medium swarm harvester vessel moving on a trajectory toward it 48 hours ago. Min-ji studied the map. A single ship. Most likely, Hyen confirmed. The main swarm fleet appears to be consolidating near the core worlds. This is a straggler. A resource collector. Perfect, Min-ji said. She turned to Dae-won. We will intercept. We will use the abyss as cover until the last possible moment. We strike hard, we strike fast. We destroy it before it can send a detailed alert. Then we vanish back into the turbulence. Dae-won studied the approach vectors. It is a good first test. A single target. But Captain, we must consider the aftermath. Even if we succeed, they will know something happened. They will come looking. Let them look, Min-ji said, her gaze fixed on the red icon. Let them waste time and ships looking in the chaos for a ghost. Every moment they are looking for us is a moment they are not harvesting another world. The final hour arrived. Throughout the ship, the intercom crackled. All hands, Condition 1. Battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, all hands to battle stations. The crew moved without running. They had drilled for this for years, even when it seemed pointless. They settled into their positions. The bridge lights dimmed, leaving only the glow of consoles. The main viewport showed the hypnotic, dangerous swirl of the abyss. Min-ji sat in her command chair, feeling the old, familiar weight settle on her shoulders. Dae-won stood to her right. All stations report ready, Captain. Weapons charged. Drive is primed. Shields at maximum. Chief Kim, Min-ji asked, her voice calm. Kim Ji-hun's voice came over the comm, loud and clear from engineering. The old girl is grumbling, but she's ready. She's waited a long time for this. Don't disappoint her, Captain.
A faint smile touched Minnie's lips.
Never. Hyen, give me a course. Take us to the edge of the turbulence. Silent running. Subin, I want firing solutions the second we have a clean target lock. The Munsu began to move. It was not a sudden leap. It was a slow, powerful push against the gravity waves. The ship groaned, metal straining against forces it was not designed to fight. The viewport showed the colorful chaos slowly beginning to thin, the star streaks becoming sharper. more defined points of light. Kong Hyan's hands danced over his console, his eyes glued to the sensor display. Navigating the shear layer now. External sensor interference dropping to 70%. 60. Weapons, Minji said. Kinetic cannons 1 through 4, loaded and charged, Subin replied. Energy batteries on standby, but recommend kinetics only. No energy signature to trace. Agreed. The groans of the ship grew louder. A warning light flashed on the engineering panel. Kim's voice came again. Minor stress fractures on Deck 7. Sealed. We're holding together. Just get us into clean space so the old girl can breathe. Interference at 20%, Hyan said, his voice tense. I am detecting the edge of the abyss boundary now. The Munsu shuddered one last time and then pushed free. The viewport cleared instantly. The chaotic colors were gone, replaced by the deep, silent black of normal space, studded with clean, sharp stars. It was a shock after so long in the soup of the abyss. Full sensor sweep, passive only, Minji ordered. Hyan worked. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an hour. The bridge was utterly silent except for the beep of consoles and the breathing of the crew. Contact, Hyan said finally. He put the image on the main screen. A ship. It was sleek, shaped like a terrible polished bone. It hung in the high orbit of a ringed gas giant. From its underbelly, thick black tendrils extended down into the planet's upper atmosphere, siphoning gases. It was a harvester just as predicted. It looked oblivious, engaged in its work. Range? Minji asked. 100,000 kilometers and closing. We are in its sensor shadow, behind the gas giant's radiation belt. It has not detected us. Minji leaned forward in her chair. Bring us around the gas giant. Use its moons for cover. Subin, I want a firing solution that uses the third moon's gravity well to slingshot our projectiles. No direct line of fire until the last second. Calculating, Subin said, her fingers flying. Solution ready. Cannons 1 and 2, programmed for staggered fire. The Munsu, a dark, angular shape against the stars, moved with a silent purpose. It was not a graceful concordance ship. It was a block of armor and guns, moving like a predator through tall grass. They came around the curve of the gas giant. The swarm harvester filled the viewport, lit by the distant sun. It was a picture of quiet destruction. Minji took a slow breath. The galaxy had ended. This was the creature that had ended it. Here, alone. Her voice was flat and clear in the quiet bridge. Weapons Officer Yoon. Fire. Yoon Subin's finger pressed the firing key. It was not a dramatic gesture. It was a simple, final tap. On the outside of the Munsu, 2 massive railgun ports opened. There was no bright light, no flash of energy. Only a deep, physical thump that resonated through the ship's hull, like the beat of a giant drum. A fraction of a second later, another thump. 2 tungsten rods, each longer than a bus, were launched into the void. They were invisible, moving at a speed that defied sense. They used the gravity of the nearby moon to bend their path, curving around it like stones from a sling. On the bridge, the only sound was the low hum of the ship. Everyone watched the main screen. A timer counted down the seconds to impact. The swarm harvester continued its work. Its black tendrils pulsed gently as they drew matter from the gas giant. Its sensors, designed to detect the complex energy signatures of concordance plasma weapons or laser beams, detected nothing. The kinetic rods left no energy trail. They were just pieces of metal, obeying the oldest laws of physics. The timer reached 0. The first rod struck the harvester just behind its pointed front section. It did not explode. It simply punched through the polished bone-like hull as if it were paper. A geyser of debris and vapor erupted from the entry point. A microsecond later, the second rod hit 20 meters further back, tearing through a different part of the ship. The effect was not like an energy weapon. The harvester did not crumple or dissolve. It was violently broken. A massive chunk of its midsection was simply ripped away, hurling spinning debris into space. The sleek, organic lines were ruined. Internal explosions, orange and violent, began to bloom deep inside the torn hull as critical systems failed. The ship went dark. Its tendrils went limp, detaching from the gas giant. It began to drift, a dead thing on the Munsu. There was no cheer. The crew watched, their faces hard. Kong Hyan scanned intensely. Target is destroyed. No secondary energy readings. No escape paths. No outgoing transmission on any standard frequency I can detect. Captain Minji nodded. They didn't see it coming. They had no warning to send. She felt no triumph, only a cold confirmation. The plan had worked. Day 1, bring us about. Back to the abyss boundary, best speed. Subin, stand down weapons but remain at ready status. The Munsu turned, its engines flaring with blue light. It began to move away from the wreckage, a shadow retreating into the dark. They were halfway to the safety of the abyss's sensor-scattering turbulence when Kong Hyan's console chimed a soft, urgent alert. His calm face tightened. New contact, emerging from hyperspace, bearing 020 high relative speed. It's a swarm ship, different class, smaller, sharper. A scout, I think.
Minji Stomaf diktened.
Did it see us? Unclear, Hyan said, his fingers flying. It appeared exactly where the harvester's last automated status pulse would have been sent. It might be a routine check-in responder, but it will see the wreckage, and it will see us if we stay on this course. The scout ship was a needle of polished black. It was already moving, changing direction towards the drifting remains of the harvester. They will know now, Commander Day 1 said quietly. They will know something did this. Not if we stop the messenger, Minji said, her mind racing. The plan for a clean hit and run was gone. Subin, can we hit it? It's faster, probably more agile. Subin was already running calculations. It's at extreme range for a kinetic shot. The probability of a hit is low. If we use our energy batteries to engage, we reveal our full signature. The scout ship was nearing the harvester wreck. In moments, it would scan it, analyze the damage, and know that kinetic weapons were used. It would then certainly detect the Munsu. We cannot let it report, Minji said. It was not a desire for more killing. It was survival. For them and for the tiny hope they represented. Chief Kim, I need maximum power to the engines now. Get us closer. Subin, prepare the energy batteries. We will have to risk it. The Munsu's engines roared, pushing the heavy ship forward. The distance began to close, but the scout was quick. It had completed a loop around the harvester. It suddenly stopped its drift. Its nose turned, pointing directly at the Munsu. It has seen us, Hyan confirmed. It is scanning us with active sensors. A new alert flashed. Incoming tight beam transmission, Hyan said. It's on a swarm frequency. It is not a communication. It is a data burst, targeting telemetry and ship identification. They are calling home. Day 1 said. Jam it, Minji ordered. The Munsu sent out a blast of radio noise, but the scout's burst was short and powerful. It was done in a millisecond. Signal was sent, Hyan said, his voice grim. Direction, Core Ward, towards the main swarm fleet. The scout ship then did something unexpected. It did not attack. It turned and shot away at incredible speed, heading back the way it came. It was running. Its job was not to fight. It was to see and tell. It is going to hyperspace, Hyan warned. It will jump in 10 seconds. Minji made a decision. Subin, all forward energy batteries. Fire, not to destroy. Aim for its engines, its jump drive. Cripple it. The Munsu's older, simpler energy batteries glowed a bright, hot blue. Lances of concentrated plasma fired across the distance. They were not the strange red, unmaking beams of the swarm. They were raw, brute force heat. The first 2 shots missed, vanishing into the dark. The third shot grazed the scout's rear section. A flash of molten metal spat into space. The scout ship shuddered, its smooth flight turning into a wobble. Its jump drive signature is fluctuating, Hyan called out. It's trying to initiate anyway. A ripple of distorted space began to form around the fleeing ship, Fire again, Minji commanded. Another volley of plasma beams lanced out. One connected squarely with the scout's damaged stern. The space-time ripple around it flickered, collapsed in on itself with a violent sensor echo, and then vanished. The scout ship did not jump. It tumbled, uncontrolled, its back end a mangled ruin. It was dead in the water. Target disabled, Subin reported. No power readings. It is not a threat. The bridge was quiet again, the air thick with tension. They had won both fights, but they had lost the secrecy they needed. Day 1 summed it up. The harvester is gone. The scout is silent. But the scout sent its report first. The swarm now knows a few things. They know the harvester was destroyed. They know it was by kinetic weapons. And they know an unknown ship, with an old energy weapon signature, was here to stop the scout from reporting. Minji looked at the drifting, ruined scout. So they will know they have a new enemy. One that fights differently. One that hides. She turned her chair. It changes nothing about our path. It only means they will start looking. Hyen, plot us a deep course back into the abyss. Not to our old spot. Somewhere new. We are ghosts. And now, we have given the living something to whisper about. As the Munsu turned and slid back into the swirling colors of the Kiryo's abyss, leaving only silence and wreckage behind, the first ripple of their action began to spread. In hidden corners of the galaxy on resistance frequency bands, a fragment of that doomed scout's transmission was intercepted and decoded. It contained a blurred, confused sensor image of a blocky, angular warship of no known design. The whisper began, passed from one broken world to the next. Something had struck back. The whisper became a story. The story became a legend. In the broken remains of the galaxy, where survivors hid in asteroids or deep caves, they spoke of the ghost of Kyrios. Some said it was the vengeful spirit of the Concordance fleet. Others said it was a new species more terrible than the swarm. The story changed with each telling, but the core remained. Something was fighting back. Aboard the Munsu, there was no legend. There was only work, weariness, and damage. Their new hiding place was deeper in the abyss, in a pocket of relative calm surrounded by violent gravity waves that scrambled sensors. The ship floated there, dark and silent. Inside, the crew performed repairs. The fight with the scout had stressed the old vessel. Conduits had burst from the engine overload. A plasma battery had misfired, scorching its housing. Chief Engineer Kim Ji-hun moved through the lower decks with a scowl. His hands were bandaged from handling hot components. They built these ships to last. He grumbled to his assistant, wiping sweat from his forehead. But not to do this. Not to dance in and out of gravity storms and fire everything at once. She needs a shipyard. She gets me and a prayer. Still, he made it work. He patched the conduits with spare parts cannibalized from non-essential decks. He rewired the damaged battery to a secondary control line. The ship would hold, but each fight left it a little weaker, a little more patched together. On the bridge, Captain Minji and Kang Hyen studied the whispers. They had managed to tap into a few of the old hidden resistance communication nets. The signals were faint and filled with static, but they could hear it. The hope in the voices. Confirmed, the harvester at Loriner was destroyed. Total loss. Scout vessel also lost. The swarm is rerouting ships to the Kyrios sector to investigate. They're calling it the Ghost. Whatever it is, it's buying us time. Minji allowed herself a small, tight smile. It was working. They were a distraction. A thorn. We must not become predictable, Commander Day 1 said, looking at the star map. Red icons now clustered near the edge of the abyss. They are looking for us. We hit a resource target. They will expect us to hit another. Or a military target. We must do the opposite. What is the opposite? Asked Yoon Subin. Their mind, Hyen said softly. Everyone looked at him. He was studying the swarm's movements on the map. It is a hive. It is efficient. Thinks in straight lines. Cause and effect. We must be an effect without a clear cause. We must be a mistake in their logic. He pointed to a new data point, Look here. A swarm supply convoy. 3 transports, 1 light escort. It is moving from a harvested world to a forward battle group. It is following a standard route through this quiet sector of space. He zoomed in. The route passes close to a nebula. Not as good as the abyss for hiding, but good enough to mask an approach. It's a military target, Day 1 cautioned. That escort will be more alert than a harvester. But their mind will be looking outward, Minji said, understanding Hyen's point, looking for a threat from the direction of the abyss or from known resistance pockets. They will not expect a threat to come from inside a nebula that is on their own safe route. It was a new tactic. It meant leaving the safety of the abyss for a different kind of cover. It was a risk. They took it. Days later, the Munsu hung in the cold, colored gases of the nebula. The ship was coated in a fine dust that helped scatter energy readings. They waited as the swarm convoy, moving with calm efficiency, entered the sector. Escort vessel is leading, Hyen whispered, though there was no need. Transports are in a line behind. They are not scanning the nebula. They are scanning the clear space ahead. Target the lead transport, Minji ordered. Cut the head off the snake. Subin, kinetics again. 1 shot. Then we hit the escort with everything as it reacts.
Zobin nodded.
Ready. The convoy glided past. The Munsu turned slowly, like a rock turning in a stream, its railgun aligned. Fire. The thump was muffled by the nebula gases. The tungsten rod shot out, invisible. It struck the lead transport amidships. The vessel disintegrated in a silent, violent bloom of metal and fire. Chaos erupted on the swarm's channels. The escort ship spun, its sensors now frantically scanning the nebula. It fired probing red beams into the clouds, but they were searching for an energy signature, for a heat bloom. The Munsu, its engines cold, was just a shape. Now, Minji said. The Munsu's older plasma batteries erupted, firing from deep within the nebula. The beams, colored by the gas, looked like strange lightning. They struck the escort ship's shields, which flared and hardened, adapting quickly. But the attack had come from an unexpected angle, and the kinetics had already done their work. The 2 remaining transport ships, without orders, began to turn in panic, colliding with each other. The escort, now adapted to the plasma, fired back. A red, unmaking beam sliced into the nebula, missing the Munsu by kilometers but boiling away the gases around them. Pull back. Deeper into the nebula, Minji ordered. The ship began to move. Another red beam lashed out. This one was closer. It grazed the Munsu's port side. On the bridge, the lights flickered. An alarm sounded. Direct hit on deck 5. Kim's voice shouted over the comm. Hull breach. Automated seals engaged. We've lost lateral thrusters on that side. The ship shuddered. They were hurt. Return fire. Cover our retreat. Minji commanded. Subin fired the remaining plasma batteries. Not to hit, but to create a screen of energy and hot gas. The Munsu, limping, slid deeper into the dense heart of the nebula. The swarm escort, unwilling to risk the confusing clouds with a damaged enemy, did not follow. It stayed to protect the surviving transports. Back in the depths of the nebula, the Munsu was quiet again. The crew fought to contain the damage on deck 5. They had lost 2 people. Their names were added to a quiet list. The ship had new, terrible scars. In the wardroom, the senior staff met. The air was heavy. They had succeeded. The convoy was broken. The swarm was again confused. But the cost was written on their faces and in the pain of their ship. We cannot take many hits like that, Day 1 said, stating what they all knew. We took the hit because we surprised them, Minji replied, her voice tired but firm. Next time, we will surprise them differently. Kim, can we make the engine signature look, for a few seconds, like a swarm energy pattern? Kim Ji-hun, his arm in a sling from a fall during the attack, looked up. His eyes were bloodshot but sharp. Maybe, for a very short burst, to confuse their targeting right when they're about to fire. It might make their beams go wide. Good, Minji said. We learn. We adapt. In our own way. She looked at each of them. They are a hive. They learn fast, but they all learn the same thing. We are alone. We learn slowly, but we learn things only we know. That is our weapon. They returned to the abyss, slower this time, nursing their wounds. The legend of the ghost grew louder. The swarm sent more ships to search the Curios sector, tying up forces. On a dozen worlds, resistance fighters, hearing the legend, found the courage to set one more charge, to cut one more power line. The Munsu was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol, and in its dark, damaged hulls, its crew simply prepared for the next cut, the next jab, hoping their old, tired hull would hold long enough to make the symbol real. The Munsu was dying by inches. The patch on Deck 5 was an ugly, welded scar. The ship's movements were slower, accompanied by new groans and vibrations that hadn't been there before. Chief Kim Ji-hun's reports grew more blunt. The drive core is fatigued. The patch will hold if we don't stress it. But we are a warship. Stress is what we do. Captain Minji listened, her face a calm mask. They were running out of time. The swarm's search pattern was tightening. Their tactics of surprise were working, but each engagement shaved off another piece of their strength. They were a candle burning at both ends. The decision came to her during a long, silent watch. She called her senior staff to the wardroom. The atmosphere was heavier than ever. Yoon Soo-bin had a burn on her cheek from a sparking console. Kang Hyan's eyes were sunken from constant sensor monitoring. "We cannot continue as we are," Minji said without preamble. "We will be found and destroyed within weeks. Our actions have been a sting to a giant. Annoying, but not fatal." Commander Day 1 nodded. "We have drawn their attention. That has helped others. It is a worthy end." "It is not the end," Minji said, her voice cutting through the tired air. "We will make our final action a beacon. Not a sting, but a trap. And we will give away the only thing we truly have." She turned to the main screen, pulling up a star chart. "The swarm is methodical. They are now obsessed with finding us. So we will show ourselves. We will let a swarm scout detect us on the edge of the abyss. We will then run, not to a nebula, but here." She pointed to a system marked Kel's Folly. "It is a dead system, a black hole remnant with a dense asteroid field. Terrible place for a battle. Perfect for us. So we lead them into an ambush where we are alone." Subin asked, confused. "We lead them into a place where their numbers mean less," Minji corrected. "Where the gravity and debris will break up their formations. But that is not the trap." She looked at Kang Hyan. "Our advantage is what we have learned about them. Their adaptation lag. Their hive mind communication frequencies. The blind spots in their sensors. We have recorded it all." Understanding dawned on Day 1's face, followed by grim acceptance. "We are not going to fight them there. We are going to teach everyone else how to fight them there." "Yes," Minji said. "We will transmit it. Everything. On every frequency. Unencrypted. A simple data burst. A gift to the galaxy. Then we will hold the swarm in that graveyard for as long as we can, to give that data time to spread, to be heard." The room was silent. It was a plan for a sacrifice, not a victory. Chief Kim was the first to speak. "The Corps cannot take a prolonged battle. But for one last, big fight, I can make her sing. I can reroute all non-essential power to shields and guns. We will be a brick. A hard, angry brick that refuses to sink." Minji looked at each of them. "This is not an order. This is a choice. We can still try to fade away. We will not last, but we will live a little longer." Yoon Soo-bin shook her head. "To what end?
To the hiding?
No. Let's give them a final bill for all the worlds they ate." Kang Hyan simply nodded. "The data is ready. I will prepare the burst. It will be a ghost's last message." The plan was set. Took days of careful movement. They allowed a swarm probe on the fringe of the abyss to catch a fleeting energy signature, a tiny burst from their engines, mimicking an old concordance signal. As predicted, the probe called for help. A response fleet, 3 sleek swarm hunters, arrived quickly. The Munsu ran, not too fast, letting them follow, a wounded animal leading the predators back to its den. The journey to Kel's Folly was tense. The swarm ships were faster, firing occasional red beams that the Munsu's battered shields deflected with showers of sparks. Damage reports trickled in. A fire in secondary storage. A sensor array blown away. Then they plunged into the dead system. The black hole remnant was a silent, invisible monster, its gravity warping space. The asteroid field was a chaotic blizzard of rock and ice. Now, Hyen, Minji said, gripping her command chair on every frequency. Radio, hyperpulse, gravity wave. The Munsu broadcast its final message. It was not a voice. It was a raw data dump. Schematics of swarm shield harmonics. Timings of their adaptation cycles. The weak points in their hull designs. The mathematical models of their hive mind communication showing how to jam it. The simple, effective tactic of kinetic weapons. It was 17 years of watchful silence and months of bloody experience, given freely to the wind. Transmission complete, Hyen said. The broadcast is propagating. It will reach nearby systems within hours. On the screen, the 3 swarm hunters entered the asteroid field. They moved with less coordination now, the strange gravity and debris forcing them apart. The hive mind was confused by the environment. All power to forward shields and main kinetic cannons, Minji ordered. Chief Kim, give me everything you have. The Munsu was no longer a ghost. It was a fortress. It turned, its wounded side hidden, its good side facing the enemy. It stopped running. The swarm ships, surprised by the sudden stand, fired. Red beams lanced through the asteroids, vaporizing them. One beam hit the Munsu's forward shield. It held, shimmering violently. Fire!
Minji yelled, Temunsus rilguns tumped.
Tungsten rods flew through the chaotic field. One swarm ship, trying to dodge a spinning asteroid, moved directly into the path of a rod. It was ripped open like a metal fruit. The other 2 scattered. They began to circle, firing constantly. The Munsu shook under the impacts. Alarms screamed. A console on the bridge exploded, injuring a junior officer. Shields failing on the port side. Day 1 shouted, "Rotate the ship. Present undamaged armor." Minji commanded. The old cruiser turned slowly, a wounded beast showing its thickest hide. Another red beam scorched its hull, melting armor plates. The ship vibrated with a terrible, deep groan. But they kept firing. Subin, her face set in a snarl, launched a spread of old concussion missiles. They weaved through the asteroids, detonating near the swarm ships, not to destroy them, but to shatter nearby rocks, filling space with a hail of fragments. One swarm hunter, its sensors overwhelmed, flew into a large, spinning asteroid. It crumpled and went dark. The last swarm ship hung back. It was calling for more help. Reinforcements were coming. On the Munsu, the lights were half out. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and ozone. Captain Minji looked at her bridge crew. They were all at their posts, bleeding, burned, but working. Data burst confirmed received. Kong Hyen coughed, blood on his lip. I am picking up relay echoes. The message is spreading. It is getting through. Minji leaned back in her chair. The main screen showed the last swarm ship waiting. Beyond it, on the edge of the system, new swarm signatures were blinking into existence. A full fleet. She smiled. It was a small, tired smile. Good, she said. Her voice was calm in the chaos. Then let's keep their attention a little longer. The reinforcements arrived. Not 3 ships now, but more than 20. They hung at the edge of the chaotic asteroid field, a silent jury of polished bone and obsidian. They had received the distress calls. They had come to exterminate the anomaly. Inside the Munsu, time had become a thin, slow trickle. The bridge was a scene of controlled ruin. Half the consoles were dark. Emergency lights painted everything in a dim red. The air was cold, leaking slowly to space through 100 small breaches. Captain Minji sat straight in her command chair. A cut on her temple had dried, a dark line down the side of her face. She watched the main screen, which flickered with static but showed the swarm of red icons. The data is still propagating, Kang Hyan said. His voice was weak. He was strapped into his chair, one arm held against his chest. Resistance channels are active. They are receiving the files. They are discussing them. That was the victory. The knowledge was out. The galaxy now had a manual on how to hurt the unbeatable enemy. Commander Day 1 stood beside her, leaning on a broken console for support. All major systems are failing. Weapons have 5% charge remaining. Main drive is offline. Thrusters are gone. We are a rock, Captain. A floating rock.
Min-Yi nodded.
Then we will be a rock in their path. Chief Kim, status of the core. The chief's voice crackled over the comm. It was thick with exhaustion. The old girl's heart is still beating, Captain, but it's a tired beat. I've routed the last of the power. I can give you one thing, one big thing. You choose. A final shot from the main gun, or a surge to the forward shields for 3 more minutes. Not both. Min-Ji did not hesitate. She looked at the swarm fleet. They were beginning to move, entering the asteroid field in a careful, deadly formation. They would surround the Munsu. They would tear it apart. All power to the main kinetic cannon, she said. Her voice was quiet but clear in the red dark. Day 1 looked at her. The shields will fail completely. The first hit will destroy us. I know, Min-Ji said, but a shield surge only delays. This is a final answer. Target the lead ship, the biggest one, the command vessel. On the main screen, Yoon Soo-bin, her hands steady despite the blood on her uniform, worked her dying console. Target locked. It is at extreme range. Probability of a kill shot is low. It doesn't need to kill it, Min-Ji said. It just needs to hit it. It needs to show them that even a rock can bite. She took a slow breath, feeling the cold air in her lungs. Are we ready? A chorus of affirmatives, soft and tired, came from the bridge crew. Then Weapons Officer Yoon. On my mark. Min-Ji watched the lead swarm ship, a massive battleship, push ahead of its pack. It was coming to deliver the final blow itself. A show of force. Mark. There was no deep thump this time. The sound was a strained, grinding cough from the heart of the ship. A single tungsten rod, the last one in the magazine, launched into the void. It flew true, a final piece of simple physics hurled at a god of complexity. The swarm command ship saw it coming. It began to adjust its shields, adapting to the kinetic threat. But it was too close, and the Munsu's data had revealed a tiny lag in such adaptations when switching from energy defense. A half-second of vulnerability. The rod struck the very edge of the battleship's forward shield. The shield flared a brilliant, shattered white and then failed. The rod, mostly vaporized by the impact, still drove a spray of molten tungsten into the ship's polished hull, scarring it deeply, blowing out a secondary hull section. It was not a killing blow, but it was a wound. On an invincible fleet, it was the first scar. The swarm battleship stopped its advance. The entire fleet seemed to pause for a moment, shocked by the defiance. On the Munsu, the main lights went out. The screen died. Only the red emergency glow remained. The deep hum of the drive core sputtered and fell silent. The ship was dead in the water, dark and cold. Min-Ji unstrapped herself and stood up. Her crew watched her. She walked to the main viewport, her boots crunching on broken glass. Outside, the swarm fleet surrounded them, hovering in the silent storm of asteroids. Signal from the swarm command vessel, Hyan whispered, reading from a portable pad that still had a flicker of power. It is a scanning beam, the most detailed scan I have ever seen. They are looking at every inch of us. They are trying to understand what we are. Let them look, Min-Ji thought. Let them see the patchwork hull, the outdated technology, the human faces behind the glass. Let them know they were fought to the last by something they had written off as extinct. The lead swarm battleship turned its main weapon toward the Munsu. A red glow gathered at its tip, brighter than any star. Min-Ji did not close her eyes. She stood tall, her crew at their posts behind her. She looked directly into the gathering light. The red beam lanced out. It did not hit the Munsu. From the edge of the system, new signatures flashed into normal space. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They were not swarm. They were ships of all shapes and sizes. Ragged Concordance remnants with patched hulls. Fast civilian freighters armed with makeshift guns. Entire fleets from species thought crushed, emerging from hidden bases. They had heard the Ghost's last message. They had come. Their combined fire, a chaotic storm of lasers, projectiles, and plasma, now aimed with the Munsu's data at known weak points, intercepted the red beam in a flash of light, scattering it into harmless energy. The swarm fleet, confronted by a sudden, organized resistance armed with their secrets, recoiled. The battle was no longer a hunt. It was a war. On the bridge of the dead Munsu, they watched through the viewport as the galaxy fought back. Lights flashed in the distance as the rescued turned rescuers. No one spoke. They had no power left for cheers. They only watched. Captain Li Minji finally sat down, the weight of 17 years lifting from her shoulders. She looked at Commander Park Dae-won, who gave her a slow, tired nod. She looked at Yoon Subin and Kang Hyen, who managed faint smiles. The viewport showed the unfolding battle, but her gaze drifted to the silent, scarred interior of her ship. To her crew, they had held the line. Outside, the swarm fleet, confused and suddenly vulnerable, began to fall back under the unexpected assault. The tide was turning, not because of a super weapon, but because a single, forgotten ship had refused to die quietly. It had passed on the torch. The CNV Munsu, a ghost no longer, drifted silently in the asteroid field. It was a tomb, a monument, a fixed point in the void. And inside its cold, dark halls, surrounded by the sounds of a galaxy finding its courage again, its crew finally, peacefully, rested.